Thank you, Apurva.
Today we are having a press conference on manufacturing NFO. Before I hand over to Shreyas and Nitin, a couple of words in terms of why we believe that this scheme is very important for us. India is going to fight for the economy. I think that narrative is really strong. We have also, government has called out a couple of sectors which we will empower this fight for the economy by 2027. We do believe that manufacturing is one thing which is a great driver for that. If you really look at the numbers today, it contributes almost 60 to 70% of the GDP, pre-pandemic basis. If you look at the initiatives what the government has taken from 2014 onwards, whether it's Make in India, PLI schemes, and if you look at the FDI flows recently, you will see that manufacturing has become a key important driver for the fight against the economy now. We do believe that there is an opportunity for our Indian investors to participate in the fight against the economy team, and manufacturing is going to be a key pivotal role to reach us. And we also looked at and see that the indexes, the benchmark what we talk about is manufacturing, which is Nifty 50 and Nifty 500. We also believe that a couple of sectors which we looked at as an opportunity in terms of valuation, because they are not at a historical peak, and we do think that there is an interesting theme emerging in terms of looking at these companies now. I think what we are trying to look at is also it's a thematic in that sense, but when you look at manufacturing, it gives an opportunity to look at 11 sectors, 66 industries. It's largely diversified in that sense, because historically, if you look at thematic, has been very focused on particular themes, whether it is sectoral fund or thematic fund. Historically, if you look at, that's how it looks like. But when you look at manufacturing as index, not even looking at the portfolio construction, what Shreyas said, anything we speak about, it's much more diversified. And if you look at Nifty 50, it is always largely led by services sector, not led by manufacturing as a team. And our belief is that we have a very broad-based team when we look at the indexes. So this is the thematic one and well-diversified one. Now I'll give to Shreyas and Nitin to take over from me. And we are here. Any questions you would like to answer?
Sure. Yep. Thanks. I'll just take you through a few slides on the background for this fund, and then Nitin will take you through the details, more details on how we are looking at the fund as such. So manufacturing theme as such is probably now all of us know because of multiple reasons around. It's first started with government focusing on it way back since 2014, Make in India. There has been various policies around it. So if you just go through it, I'll just highlight key aspects of this. So first of all, it goes back to the basic, what is manufacturing? Actually, when we first made this slide and the next, it reminded me of one of the question that what is machine? That question you must have heard in 3 years, right? And the answer was very cliche, and now that's where a very technical answer to it. What is manufacturing? Obviously, we should know that what is the technical answer to what is manufacturing. But in the context of investors and in the context of which sectors we are going into, when we talk about manufacturing, this is where this is what we all understand now. This is manufacturing, right? When we look at what is sector and what are the sectors in it. Now, if you look at the sectors in detail, that the part of this manufacturing as a segment is the large part is into auto and auto ancillary as a sector, because obviously that is a manufacturing. Chemical industry, again, if you look at chemical industry in India, has been doing well since 2016. It's not now. Actually, this industry exists in India since 1980s. Multiple entrepreneurs are working here for multiple generations. So it's not that this is something new we are talking about, right? Because the feel which everyone gets is okay, this is something new, and whether it is just theme today, it is not a theme today. This has been playing out for multiple years. If you see, auto as a sector has been there in India for multiple years, right? And that sector has transitioned itself from diesel, petrol. Now some of the companies are doing EVs as well. If you look at chemical again as a sector, since 1980s, we were superior in our pharmaceutical exports. Is one of the key skill set which we had as a country was in the chemical industry. That's where this sector has been doing well for us for multiple years. Pharmaceutical, again, everyone of us know that we export. We are one of the largest exporter by volume of tablets to US. By value it may not be, but by volume we are the largest exporters of tablets. Then there is the capital goods engineering. Here we are actually aiming around multiple MNCs are setting new plants, electrical, electronics, food, beverages, textile. Again we are largest, one of the second largest cotton producing country, and that is one of our strength. Because of that, we are actually again one of the largest exporter of home furnishing, that is the bed, bed linens and all. So that is we are largest. So in apparel may not be largest, but in the home furnishing we are one of the largest. Consumer durable building materials. So these are the defense, aerospace again. So some of these industries, you can now see, some of these industries are outcome of investment of multiple promoters for decades in this industry, and we as a country has gained knowledge into this industry. Some of these industries are outcome of policies like defense as well as EMS, that is the electronic manufacturing services industry, wherein government particularly focused on reducing import, and that's where that process started way back in last decade itself. And now with and it's more to do with the confluence of multiple things going in our favor. It's not only one thing which played out. It's about promoters. It is about we as a country and educated manpower. It is about policy. It is about China plus one and the geopolitical equations which started changing, especially post-COVID. So it is about it's a confluence of multiple parameters. Some of them played out recently. Some of them were playing out for multiple decades. So this is going to be about the manufacturing in that sense. I think some of this historical perspective I've already highlighted that it's that from multiple years some of these industries are developing. Some of the industries, as I said, are outcome of the more of the policy push which we had in last 10 years. The outcome again, if you want to see numbers, so one is the narrative part of it, and the other is the real outcome in numbers. That's where we need to focus about. And now if you look at that registration of new company, you know that always in India when it comes to export services we have done extremely well. Well, again we are one of the largest exporter of software services, and that has been outcome of our English speaking manpower, which actually played out over last 3 decades or so. And now if you see the number of company, so this is one of the metric which we have used, that number of companies registered in India in 2015, 2018 and 2022, right, in multiple sectors. You will notice that now that number of companies getting registered in services sector as a percentage of total company has come down to 64, while number of companies getting registered in manufacturing sector has moved up. Right. So there are these changes which you are already noticing. Mind the FDI in the manufacturing sector has increased, and it is getting more granular as well, because the manufacturing sector, unlike some of the infrastructure sector, may not require huge amount. So some of the questions which comes is, okay, the number is broadly there, but by number of companies are doing it. So because individual investment may not take a huge amount of investment. So why all this happened? Again, if you want to focus on multiple policies, so there has been Make in India, there has been Industrial Corridor, India Stack, PM Gati Shakti, PLI scheme, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So all in all, the underlying theme here has been India's focus on reducing dependence on import, because at a point in time our electronics import was getting as high as crude oil import also. It was and that fear is there, right? So the first urge started from that we want to reduce our import dependence. Later on, to further, it's not about just talking about it, and then to further fuel that and more people to invest or countries to invest in India, then we actually try to improve our infrastructure and which is obviously important for anyone to manufacture in India. So it's a combination of multiple things, policy push as well as I said, the external parameters as well. Now, if you look at some of the things again that those happened in last decade, but then it's, as I said, it's always confluence of multiple parameters. So one of the angle was also reduction in the corporate tax rate, right? So some things happened earlier while its outcome is being seen now, and that's where the average landed cost in US of goods from India perspective, we are now getting competitive in that context. So one more angle here is about investment and export part of economy. And if you notice, India's export actually increased in the first decade of this century, right? In the second decade, actually, if you notice, it remained here. And with the confluence of policy push, which started somewhere here, to various geopolitical changes worldwide, the net outcome is, look at the growth which we have seen in the exports. India's share in the global mercantile export has risen from 1.3 to 1.9 during this time. Again, a domestic demand is always important for manufacturing because if there is enough demand for good locally, then local manufacturing is always encouraged, which is reflected in multiple things. If you see, even when you purchase expensive shoes, sports shoes, which are upwards of 6,000-7,000 rupees, you will notice that most of the time those shoes are not made in India, while the lower ticket size shoes are made in India. Why that happens is, again, how much is demand locally versus how much is demand globally. All those parameters play in the picture. So India's consumption or domestic demand is also driving this urge for the manufacturers to manufacture in India. And that's where even consumption plays a bigger role for anyone to take a decision to manufacture in India per se. Again, these are some of the estimates on GDP. And if you notice that if India has to become the nominal GDP, it's the nominal GDP and not real. So India's nominal GDP is expected to grow to 7.9 by FY32. But here the contribution of manufacturing is expected to increase a lot. And the other part which I talked about, consumption. So when countries per capita GDP increases, then the pattern of consumption also change. So the non-retail, so automotive, leisure, the spend on these items keep on increasing. So in the consumption part also, the spend on these parts actually is actually increasing more than 4 times, while the GDP growth may not be there. So the point is that the growth is driven by the manufacturing, expected to be driven by manufacturing, and even when the consumption grows per capita GDP growth, the pattern of consumption changes, and those items, then the country starts manufacturing in India. This is just list of few of the announcements which most of the global companies made publicly to invest in India, and this is where it contributes to the FDI flows, which was there in the earlier chart. And then if you notice that the key point to notice here is it is across sectors. It is in semiconductor, it is in engineering services, as I highlighted, it is in footwear also. It is not only concentrated in one. So it is there in multiple sectors, and that investment will be announced by most of the MNC companies, and that process is on. And that's where this slide gives you that picture of it's not just about a talk. It is that some companies are actually putting their money here. In listed names, anyway, you know, multiple listed names have in their public calls and all, they have also announced such things. So yes, so this is about manufacturing. So more aspects of manufacturing in terms of how it touches different segments of the GDP. As you know, GDP comprises of consumption, investment, and net exports, right? And the government spend, obviously, which is also part of the investment. So these three are the key parts of economy. For any economy to grow, all these three elements need to grow faster. And when we are investing in a particular fund, the more aspects that fund touches when it comes to these components of GDP, the more broad-based that fund becomes. And on this, to delve more into this, actually I will invite Nitin. He will take you through this aspect as being the more granular aspect of the fund.
Thank you, Shreyas. Thank you everyone for joining in. So as Shreyas was mentioning about, there are three things especially we are looking in this fund. And to start with, it's always very important to look manufacturing in tandem with what is happening in your country with respect to consumption, because consumption eventually leads to higher utilization of plants, to be very precise. Now, here, the three things what we are focusing is, let's just touch base on this only. So when we talked about demand, it's very important to look what is happening in your country at this point in time and what are the trends we see. So the first part of our fund, the first prognosis of our fund is C part, which is called consumption. We believe that the premium consumption or the discretionary spends will continue to increase in the country. I can give you some examples of it, and we are seeing this trend even from the past, but we believe it will further accelerate. Let's take an example of an auto sector. India sells about closer to 29-30 lakh cars a year. It was 50% is SUV at this point in time. 3-4 years back, or rather 3 years, just pre-COVID back, we used to sell 20-23 lakh cars a year, whereas 20% was SUV. In the newspaper, you keep looking at, India is a number 3 in terms of volume. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, it's the value that matters. So on value, we are almost like 40th, 50th number. But that's increasing, the content is increasing, which tells you that premium discretionary spends and the premiumization is increasing a lot. Despite all this, we have seen festive sales have been very good, as per the conference calls and as per the results by the company's autos. So I think premium consumption is continuing to increase. We're seeing that in the high-end launches of the real estate sales. Whatever is getting made or launched is getting sold out. I think it's a question of more of where is the more inventory now. We see it not, I would say, a premium consumption. Let's look at hospitals, large ticket items, but growing in double digits. You look at any apparel brand in higher end, despite such high bases of growing at 15-20%, they're still growing in double digit. So that tells you very clearly that the upper strata of the economy is very strong despite all of your inflation, all of your high base. There was a fear that it will fall, but